pod was failing. Zenith could feel the cryostasis gel warming against her carapace, the soft hum of power fluctuating into silence. Her 6 limbs twitched involuntarily as consciousness clawed back through the cold. This wasn't the awakening protocol. This was system failure. Through the frosted glass, she saw emergency lights pulsing red across the hive ship's medical bay. No movement, no sound of her sisters. The gel drained with a mechanical wheeze and the pod door hissed open, spilling her onto the metal floor, her legs buckled. How long had she been under? The Neuralink was dead. She couldn't feel the presence of the hive mind, that constant warmth of 1,000 connected thoughts. Silence pressed against her consciousness like a physical weight. She was alone. Zenith dragged herself upright, mandibles clicking in distress. The medical bay stretched empty in both directions, rows of pods dark and cold. She approached the nearest one and scraped frost from the viewing panel. Inside, her sister's form had turned gray, the chemical signature of death weeks old. The next pod showed the same. And the next. Zenith's breathing quickened, the spiracles along her thorax opening wide. She moved faster now, checking pod after pod, finding only corpses in various stages of decomposition. 300 sisters. All dead. A sound froze her in place, footsteps, heavy and rhythmic, coming from the corridor beyond. Not the light tapping of hivekin, something else. Something bipedal. Zenith's combat training surged through muscle memory. She pressed herself against the wall beside the door, claws extending from her forearms. The footsteps stopped just outside. A pause. Then the door slid open and a figure stepped through, and Zenith's world lurched sideways. Human. Impossible. Humans were primitives confined to their single world, barely capable of orbital flight. Yet here stood one in full environmental armor, weapon raised, scanning the medical bay with practiced efficiency. The human's helmet turned toward her and time compressed into a single heartbeat. Zenith lunged. Her claws caught the weapon and wrenched it aside as she drove the human backward. They crashed together into a medical cart, instruments scattering across the floor. The human was strong, stronger than intelligence reports had indicated, and fought with vicious economy of motion. An armored elbow cracked against Zenith's mandibles. She hissed and wrapped 2 arms around the human's torso, squeezing, trying to crush the armor. But the human twisted, broke her hold, and slammed a fist into her thorax. Pain exploded through her chest. Zenith staggered back, gasping. The human didn't press the attack. Instead, hands rose slowly, palms outward. The helmet retracted with a mechanical whir, revealing a face, female, scarred along one cheek, eyes hard but not hostile. Easy, the human said in perfect hive tongue, the clicks and harmonics flawless. I'm not here to kill you. Zenith's claws remained extended. You speak our language. Your ship's been drifting for 6 months. We've been studying it. The human's eyes flicked to the dark pods. We found it near the Barrier Nebula, broadcasting a distress signal. No power, no life signs. We boarded 3 days ago. My sisters, dead before we arrived. The reactor failed. Backup systems kept your pod running on reserve power until yesterday. The human took a slow step closer. You're the only survivor. The words hit like physical blows. Zenith's legs trembled. 300 sisters, gone. The hive mind severed. She was an individual now, a thing the hive had no word for because it should not exist. Her purpose, her identity, her entire reason for being, all erased. Why save me? Zenith managed. The human's expression shifted, something almost like sympathy crossing her features. Because we could. I'm Commander Sarah Chen, captain of the human vessel Artemis. You're aboard my ship now. We pulled you out when your pod started failing. Where is my ship? Still drifting. We're towing it to the nearest station. Standard first contact protocol. Zenith's mind raced through possibilities, all of them ending in capture or dissection. The humans had found a hive ship, helpless and abandoned. They could learn everything. Technology, biology, star charts showing the locations of hive worlds. This was an intelligence catastrophe. You must destroy it, Zenith said. Destroy all data. The hive cannot... The hive won't care. Chen's voice cut through her rising panic. We know what happened. The plague. It's spreading through your space, isn't it? Ship by ship, world by world. Your people are dying. Zenith's spiracles clenched shut. The plague. 3 months before her ship had departed, reports began filtering through the hive mind. A sickness that attacked hivekin nervous systems, severing them from the collective consciousness before killing them slowly, alone and afraid. The scientists had promised a cure. The queens had ordered business as usual. And now Zenith stood in a human ship, the last survivor of a crew that had carried the plague into deep space, running from an empire that might already be dead. "How do you know this?" she whispered. Chen pulled a data tablet from her belt and held it out. On the screen, Zenith saw surveillance footage from a Hive border station, bodies everywhere, the station's lights flickering. And then the image changed. Warships, dozens of them, drifting dark and silent through space. Hive vessels, all dead. "We've been monitoring your territory for the last 2 months," Chen said quietly. "Your communications networks went dark. Your patrol routes stopped." "We sent reconnaissance drones and found this. I'm sorry." Zenith took the tablet with shaking hands, scrolling through image after image of death. Stations, ships, orbital habitats. All silent, all abandoned. The Hive was gone. Chen gestured toward the corridor. "Come with me. There's something you need to see." Zenith followed numbly, her mind struggling to process the scale of the loss. The Artemis was smaller than Hive ships, but elegant in its efficiency. Humans moved through the corridors with purpose, most wearing the same environmental armor as Chen. They stared as Zenith passed, some with fear, others with curiosity. None drew weapons. The ship felt alive in a way Hive vessels never did. Conversation, laughter, the smell of food from an open galley, individual lives intersecting but distinct. Chen led her to an observation deck where a massive viewport displayed the stars. Zenith's Hive ship hung in the distance, a dark seed shape against the nebula's glow. "We've been analyzing the plague samples from your medical bay," Chen said. "It's a bioweapon, engineered. Someone did this to your people deliberately." Ice flooded Zenith's veins. "That's impossible. The Hive has enemies, but none capable of genocide?" Chen's jaw tightened. "We found the signature markers. Genetic manipulation at the molecular level. This wasn't natural evolution. Someone created it, deployed it, and wiped out your species." Zenith's legs folded beneath her and she sank to the floor. Bioweapon. Created. Her entire species murdered by design. "Who?" The word came out broken. "We don't know yet, but we will find out." Chen knelt beside her. "I need you to understand something, Zenith. Humanity went through our own extinction event 300 years ago. The Cascade Wars. We lost 4 billion people in 6 months. We know what it's like to stare into the void." Zenith looked up at the human commander.
"Why tell me this?"
"Because you're not alone, and because we need your help." Chen stood and activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy's spiral arms with dozens of markers scattered across one quadrant. In the last month, we've detected similar plague signatures on 7 other species' worlds. Different genetic structures, but the same base weapon. Someone is conducting a purge, and we think you might help us figure out who. The implications crashed over Zenith like a physical wave. This wasn't just the Hive. This was systematic extermination across multiple species. An enemy so powerful, so ruthless that entire civilizations fell before they could even identify the threat. "I'm a medical technician," Zenith said. "Not a warrior or scientist. I have no authority, no." "You're alive," Chen interrupted. "That makes you the ranking Hive authority in this sector, possibly in the entire galaxy. I know that's not how your people work, but it's true now. You're the queen whether you want to be or not. Queen." The title felt like a brand burning into her consciousness. Queens were born to rule, genetically superior, connected to the Hive mind through neural architecture Zenith didn't possess. She was a technician, a worker, nothing more. But Chen's words carried a terrible logic. If she was the only survivor, then by default, by the simple math of extinction, she was the Hive's last voice. Its last chance. Its last hope. "What do you want me to do?" Zenith asked. Chen's expression hardened. "Help us track the source. Your ship's logs might contain data about the plague's initial outbreak. Patient 0, transmission vectors, anything that could lead us to whoever deployed it. Then we hunt them down and make sure they can't do this again." Zenith pulled herself upright, her legs steady now despite the trembling in her core. "If I do this, if I help you, what happens to me afterward? That's your choice. We're not keeping you prisoner. You're a refugee and under human law that grants you protection and autonomy. When this is over, you decide your own path." The concept felt alien. Choice. Autonomy. Words without meaning in Hive culture where every action served the collective. But the collective was dead. Only Zenith remained, and she had to decide who she would become in this new reality. She thought of her sisters, cold in their pods. Thought of the hive world, silent and still. Thought of the other species facing the same engineered extinction. "I'll help you," Zenith said, "but I need access to my ship's medical database. And I need," she hesitated, unused to expressing personal needs, "I need time to mourn." Chen nodded. "You'll have both. We're 3 days from the nearest station where we can safely dock your ship and begin the analysis. Until then, you're free to move about the Artemis. I'll assign someone to help you acclimate." A young human appeared in the doorway, male, barely past adolescence by the look of him. "This is Ensign Marcus Webb," Chen said. "He'll be your liaison. Marcus, show our guest to the empty quarters on Deck 3. Make sure she has whatever she needs." Webb snapped a salute. "Yes, ma'am." He turned to Zenith with an awkward smile. "It's really good to meet you. I mean, not good because of the circumstances, but—" "Dismissed, Ensign," Chen said, but her tone held warmth. Webb flushed and gestured for Zenith to follow. As they left the observation deck, Zenith heard Chen speaking quietly into a comm device. "All senior staff to the briefing room in 20 minutes. We have a situation." The corridor seemed less hostile now, though. Zenith noticed the humans still gave her a wide berth. Webb chatted nervously as they walked, explaining ship protocols and meal schedules and recreational facilities. His voice was soothing in its normalcy, a reminder that life continued even in the shadow of death. The quarters were small but functional. A bed designed for human proportions, a desk with a computer terminal, and a viewport showing the stars. Webb demonstrated the environmental controls and bathroom facilities, his explanations growing more flustered as he tried to account for Zenith's different biology. "I'll have the galley prepare something suitable for your dietary needs," he said. "I pulled your species' nutritional requirements from the database. It might not taste like home, but it should keep you healthy." "Thank you," Zenith said, and Webb's face brightened. "Call if you need anything. The comm panel is by the door. I'm on duty for the next 8 hours." He left, and Zenith was alone for the first time since awakening. She moved to the viewport and stared out at her dead hive ship. Somewhere inside that dark hole were the bodies of her sisters, the records of their lives, the last fragments of a civilization that had spanned 100 worlds. She pressed one claw against the cold glass. In hive culture, death was meaningless because the collective endured. Individual workers died every day, their memories and experiences absorbed into the hive mind, their bodies recycled for nutrients. Death was transition, not ending. But this was different. This was extinction. Total. Final. Irreversible. Zenith closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, trying one last time to feel the hive mind's warmth. Nothing. Only silence. She stood there for hours, claws pressed to glass, mourning a universe that had died while she slept. When she finally turned away, something had shifted inside her. The grief remained. Would always remain, but beneath it grew a core of something harder. Purpose. Chen had called her queen, and though the title felt wrong, the responsibility didn't. She was the last, the only voice left to speak for the dead, and she would make sure that voice was heard. Zenith activated the computer terminal and began composing a message to Chen. If they were going to hunt the architects of genocide, they would need more than just medical records. They would need to understand how the hive thought, how it organized, how it defended itself, and only Zenith could provide that knowledge. The message finished, she sent it and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress felt strange beneath her, too soft, designed for a body plan completely unlike hers. But it held her weight. It kept her from the floor. It was, in its way, an act of compassion from a species that owed her nothing. A chime sounded and the door slid open. Chen stepped inside, data tablet in hand. "I got your message. You want to help analyze the tactical data? I want to teach you how to think like the hive," Zenith said. "Our enemies understood us well enough to create a plague that exploited our neural architecture. To fight them, you need to understand what they understood." Chen pulled up a chair. "I'm listening." Zenith spent the next 3 hours explaining hive psychology, the way consciousness distributed across the network, the chemical languages that coordinated action across light years. Chen asked sharp questions, making connections Zenith hadn't considered. The human mind worked differently, more chaotic, more individualistic, but no less intelligent. As they talked, other crew members arrived. The ship's chief medical officer, Dr. Amara Okonkwo, who spoke excitedly about the potential for adapting hive biotechnology for human use. The tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Zhao, who wanted to know about hive defensive strategies. the xenobiologist, Professor Mikhail Volkov, who could barely contain his enthusiasm at meeting a living hivekin. They filled the small quarters, human voices overlapping, debating, questioning. Zenith found herself at the center of something that felt almost like a new kind of hive mind. Not neural, not chemical, but social. A meeting of minds through language and gesture. Different, but functional. The briefing lasted until ship's night cycle. As the others filtered out, Chen remained behind. "You did well," the commander said. "I know this can't be easy. It's necessary," Zenith replied. "Nothing more. It's more than necessary. It's brave." Chen stood to leave, but paused at the door. "Tomorrow we reach the station. We'll begin the deep analysis of your ship. I won't lie, it's going to be difficult. Seeing your home one more time, facing the evidence. Are you ready for that?" Zenith's mandibles clicked softly. "No, but I will do it anyway." Chen smiled, a sad expression that held understanding. "That's the definition of courage. Get some rest. Tomorrow changes everything." The door closed and Zenith was alone again. She lay down on the bed, her body curving awkwardly on the human furniture. Sleep seemed impossible, but exhaustion pulled her down into darkness. She dreamed of the hive mind, that warm ocean of collective thought. In the dream, her sisters swam beside her, their consciousness touching hers in greeting. But as she reached out to join them, they dissolved into static and she woke, gasping, spiracles flaring wide. The viewport showed new stars. They had traveled while she slept. Her hive ship still hung in the distance, but now a massive space station loomed ahead, a human construction of spinning rings and docking arms, lights blazing against the void. Zenith rose and went to the viewport. This was it, the moment when past and future collided, when she would walk through the halls of her dead ship and face the full weight of what had been lost. Her reflection stared back from the glass, an alien shape in a human room. Neither hive nor human. Something new. Something undefined. "Queen," Chen had called her. The title still felt wrong. But perhaps that was because she was thinking in the old ways, expecting queens to be born rather than forged. Perhaps the plague had killed not just the hive, but the old definitions, leaving space for something unprecedented. A queen who chose her crown. A ruler without subjects. A voice for the silent dead. Zenith turned from the viewport and began to prepare herself. Whatever came next, she would face it with mandibles high and claws ready. The hive had fallen, but she remained. And that would have to be enough. The docking procedure took 2 hours. Zenith watched from the Artemis observation deck as massive mechanical arms secured her hive ship to the station's quarantine bay. The vessel looked smaller here, diminished by human architecture. Chen stood beside her, arms crossed, studying the tactical displays. "Station command wants to sterilize the whole ship," the commander said quietly. "Standard disease protocol. I convinced them to give us 72 hours first, but after that, they're torching everything. 72 hours to salvage the last remnants of hive civilization." Zenith felt the weight of that deadline settle across her shoulders. "When do we board?" "Immediately. My team is prepped and ready." "Are you sure you want to do this? You don't have to." "I have to," Zenith said. The boarding party assembled in the Artemis airlock. Dr. Travis Okonkwo and her medical team wore full biohazard suits, portable scanners hanging from their belts. Lieutenant Zhao brought a security detachment, weapons holstered but accessible. Professor Volkov practically vibrated with barely contained excitement, 3 different recording devices clipped to his suit, and Chen, standing at the front checking each person's equipment with practiced efficiency. Zenith wore no protective gear. The plague was designed for hive biology. It couldn't harm humans, and she was already exposed. If it remained active in her system, the damage was done. The airlock cycled and they crossed through the umbilical tunnel into the hive ship. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly green. The air tasted stale, recycled too many times without proper filtration. Zenith led them through familiar corridors, her legs moving on autopilot while her mind screamed at the wrongness of human boots on hive decking. They reached the medical bay first. The pods stood in their neat rows, dark and silent. Dr. Okonkwo immediately began scanning the nearest bodies, her team spreading out to collect tissue samples. Volkov recorded everything, his voice a constant murmur as he documented the scene. Zenith moved to her own pod, the one that had kept her alive. The power cell lay exposed, jury-rigged connections showing where Chen's engineers had extended its life. 3 wires. 3 pieces of copper and polymer, the difference between existence and extinction. "The bodies show consistent neural degradation," Okonkwo said, studying her scanner. The plague attacked their connection to the hive mind first, then spread to autonomous systems. Death would have taken anywhere from 6 to 30 hours, conscious, aware, alone. How much did they suffer? Zenith asked. Okonkwo's expression softened behind her faceplate. I don't know, but I'm sorry. They moved deeper into the ship. The crew quarters revealed personal effects. Small sculptures carved from ship metal, collections of crystallized minerals from various worlds, one worker's carefully maintained garden of bioluminescent fungi, now dead and black, evidence of individual personalities existing beneath the hive mind's collective consciousness. Zenith hadn't known her sisters kept such things. The revelation made their deaths feel heavier. The bridge next, she said. The command center was the ship's largest chamber, designed for multiple queens to coordinate complex operations. Empty thrones stood in a circle around the central navigation sphere. Zhao whistled low. Impressive. These control systems are decades ahead of our technology. The hive was old, Zenith said. We had time to refine our designs. Chen approached the main console. Can you access the logs from here? Zenith triggered the interface with the claw-tip pattern she'd practiced 10,000 times. The navigation sphere flickered to life, casting blue light across the chamber. Data scrolled past in hive script. Star charts, mission parameters, personnel records, and there, buried in the medical section, the plague's timeline. Patient 0 manifested symptoms 8 months ago, Zenith said, translating for the humans. A worker named Thesic, assigned to diplomatic duties on the border world Cathron, 7. She reported feeling disconnected from the hive mind during the rest period. Medical staff assumed neural fatigue. By the time they recognized the infection, she had already spread it to 47 others. Chen leaned closer. Kethrin, 7. That's near the disputed zone, isn't it? Yes, a neutral world where multiple species negotiate trade agreements. Zenith pulled up more data. Thesic attended a multi-species conference 3 days before symptom onset. There were representatives from 12 different civilizations, including... The list made her spiracles clench. Humans, Kethrian Collective, Zrathian Empire, Melodian Federation, 7 other species. All of them now showing plague outbreaks according to Chen's intelligence. It started at the conference, Zhao said. Someone released it there, targeting every attendee. But why? Volkov asked. What's the strategic value in killing everyone? Chen's jaw tightened. Not everyone. Look at the attendee list. What's missing? Zenith scanned the names, her mind racing through galactic politics. And then she saw it. The Vryn Ascendancy. They control the other half of the disputed zone, but they weren't invited to the conference. Because the conference was about limiting Vryn expansion, Chen said. All 12 attending species were working together to contain Ascendancy territory, and now all 12 species are dying from engineered plagues. The implications hung in the air like poison. The Vryn Ascendancy had created the plague, had deployed it at a peace conference, had committed genocide against 12 species to eliminate opposition to their territorial ambitions. We need proof, Zhao said. Chain of evidence, something that ties the Vryn directly to the bioweapon. Okonkwo's voice crackled over the comm. Commander, you need to see this. Main cargo hold, Section 3. They found the doctor standing over an open shipping container. Inside, secured in medical stasis fields, were hundreds of vials filled with amber liquid. Each vial bore labels in multiple languages, including Hive script. I found it tucked behind the legitimate medical supplies, Okonkwo said. This is the delivery system. Someone planted it on your ship before you launched. Zenith's world tilted. That's impossible. Our security protocols were compromised. Chen finished. The Vryn didn't just release the plague at the conference. They made sure every species carried it home. Your ship was supposed to reach a hive world and infect the population there. Instead, the reactor failed and you drifted into human space. How many other ships? Zenith whispered. How many other species had their vessels sabotaged? Chen pulled out her data tablet and began cross-referencing. According to our intelligence, at least 20 to 3 ships across different species went missing after the conference. All reported as lost to various accidents. Pirates. Engine failures. Navigational errors. None of them made it home. The scope of it staggered Zenith. A conspiracy spanning months, manipulating dozens of civilizations, orchestrating the greatest genocide in galactic history. And it had almost worked. We have to tell the Council, Zhao said. Present this evidence, get the other surviving species on board, launch a coordinated response. No one will believe us, Zenith interrupted. The Vryn are too powerful, too well connected. They'll deny everything, claim we're fabricating evidence to justify aggression. By the time the Council agrees on an investigation, every targeted species will be extinct. She turned to Chen. Unless we force their hand. Chen's eyes narrowed. What are you proposing? The Vryn think they've won, Zenith said, her mind racing through possibilities. They think the plague has eliminated all opposition. But they're wrong. I survived. Your species survived. Others might have survivors too, isolated ships or colonies that haven't been infected yet. If we can find them, unite them, we become proof that their plan failed. A survivors' coalition, Volkov said. United witness testimony from multiple species. That might work. It's not just testimony, Chen said slowly, understanding dawning in her expression. It's a threat. If survivors exist and are organized, the Vryn's territorial expansion becomes infinitely more complicated. They'll have to negotiate. Or try to finish what they started, Zhao cautioned. Zenith's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Let them try. They designed the plague to exploit our weaknesses, the hive's dependence on collective consciousness, humanity's susceptibility to specific pathogens, but they didn't account for adaptation, for survivors learning from catastrophe, for different species working together. Chen was already pulling up star charts. We'll need a base of operations, somewhere neutral but defensible, and we'll need to move fast before the Vryn realize what we're doing. The station has long-range communications, Zhao offered. We could start broadcasting on emergency frequencies, looking for other survivors. Do it, Chen ordered. All species, all languages. Tell them what happened and where to find us. Meanwhile, we need to salvage everything useful from the hive ship before the sterilization deadline. They worked through the night, human and hive moving in coordinated urgency. Dr. Okonkwo cataloged biological samples and medical data. Volkov documented hive technology and cultural artifacts. Zhao's security team mapped the ship's defensive systems for potential adaptation to human vessels. And Zenith guided them through it all, sharing knowledge that had been hive-restricted for centuries. By the time ship's morning arrived, they had extracted teraquads of data and hundreds of physical samples. The hive ship stood empty, stripped of everything that could help the living. Chen found Zenith in the bridge, standing before the empty thrones. Time's up, the commander said gently. Station command is starting the sterilization sequence in 20 minutes. Zenith touched one throne with her claw, feeling the smooth metal worn by generations of queens. This ship was home to 300 souls. Now it's going to be ash and vapor. But what they knew, what they experienced, that survives. In you. In the data. In what we're building. And put a hand on Zenith's carapace, the gesture awkward but genuine. They're not forgotten. They evacuated to the station and watched from an observation gallery as the hive ship burned. Plasma torches reduced it to slag, eliminating any trace of the plague. Zenith stood motionless, watching her past turn to light. Other survivors had begun to arrive. First, a Kethrian shuttle carrying 5 colonists who'd been off-world when their planet fell silent. Then a Melodian science vessel with a crew of 12, drifting in deep space when the plague hit their homeworld. A lone Zarathian warrior in an escape pod, the only survivor of a warship that had killed itself to prevent infection spread. Each arrival brought new stories of loss, new evidence of Vryn treachery. Chen organized them all, providing quarters and resources, treating each survivor with the same dignity she'd shown Zenith. The coalition grew. Within a week, they had representatives from 8 species, 23 individuals total. Chen called a meeting in the station's largest conference room. Zenith looked around at the assembled survivors, different biologies, different cultures, united by catastrophe. We are the dead who refuse to die, Chen began, her words translated into multiple languages simultaneously. Our peoples are gone, but their memories live in us. The Vryn ascendancy tried to erase us from history. Instead, they created something they never expected. Solidarity forged in survival. She activated a holographic display showing the evidence they'd gathered. Plague samples, shipping manifests, testimony from multiple species, a pattern of sabotage and genocide impossible to dismiss. Alone, we're victims. Together, we're witnesses. And witnesses have power. A Melodian named Chorus of Sorrow spoke, her translation device rendering her song speech into words. The Galactic Council moves slowly. Even with this evidence, they'll debate for months while the Vryn consolidate their gains. What can 23 survivors do against an empire? Zenith stood, drawing all eyes. We survive. We adapt. We make them fear what we represent. The failure of their perfect plan. Every day we live is proof they can't erase species through treachery. And while they're busy trying to silence us, we're building something new. A coalition? What form does it take? Whatever form we choose, Chen said. This station is neutral territory. No single species controls it. We pool our knowledge, our technology, our remaining resources. We become a living monument to what was lost and a promise of what might be built from the ashes. The Vryn won't allow it, Chorus of Sorrows said. They'll send ships, assassins. They'll try to finish what the plague started. Then we defend ourselves, Zhao said. The station has defensive capabilities. With hive technology and multi-species cooperation, we can make it impregnable. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for going public immediately, broadcasting their evidence across the galaxy. Others wanted to stay hidden, building strength before revealing themselves. Zenith listened to it all, watched the dynamics of different species negotiating without the structure of their old governments. It was messy, chaotic. Nothing like the efficient unity of the hive mind. But it was real. Authentic. Alive. Finally, Chen called for a vote. Do we make this official? Form a coalition, pool resources, stand together? The answer came in 8 different languages, but the meaning was universal. Yes, the coalition was born that day in a conference room on a neutral station, 23 survivors declaring themselves the inheritors of 12 dead civilizations. They needed a name. Zenith suggested it. The Phoenix Coalition, she said. In human mythology, a bird that dies and is reborn from its own ashes. We are the ashes of our peoples. Let us be their rebirth. The name stuck. Within days, they had organized themselves into working groups. Defense, communications, technology sharing, medical research, resource management. Each survivor contributed what they could. Zenith found herself leading the technology integration team, teaching Kethrians and Melodians how hive biotechnology could interface with their systems. She was doing something no hivekin had done before, building bridges between species instead of maintaining the hive's traditional isolation. It felt right. Purposeful. Like finding a role she'd been born for but never knew existed, news of the Phoenix Coalition began to spread through unofficial channels. More survivors arrived. A Vryn defector who'd discovered the plague conspiracy and fled with evidence. 2 human colonies that had gone dark to avoid infection. 3 hive workers from an asteroid mining operation. The dead were not as dead as the Ascendancy believed, but with growth came danger. A month after the Coalition's formation, long-range sensors detected Vryn warships approaching the station. Chen assembled the council in the command center. 6 ships battlecruiser class. They'll be in weapons range in 3 hours. Can we fight them? The Zarathian warrior asked. Zhao pulled up tactical displays. The station has weapons, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. In a straight fight, they'll destroy us. Then we don't fight straight, Zenith said. An idea was forming, terrible and brilliant. We give them what they expect, weak survivors begging for mercy. And while they're savoring their victory, we show them what adaptation means. She explained her plan. It was risky, requiring perfect timing and complete trust between species that had barely known each other existed a month ago. But Chen smiled that fierce smile and said, "Let's do it." The Vryn ships arrived with weapons charged, broadcasting demands for the station's surrender. Chen responded from the command center, her image transmitted to the lead battlecruiser. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Phoenix Coalition. We're unarmed survivors of the plague. We request peaceful dialogue." The Vryn commander's face filled the screen. Sharp features, eyes like chips of ice. "There will be no dialogue, human. You harbor enemies of the Ascendancy. Surrender all personnel for processing, and we may spare your station." "We have evidence of Ascendancy involvement in genocide," Chen said, keeping her voice steady. 12 species, billions dead. We're prepared to present this evidence to the Galactic Council. The commander's expression didn't change. "Your evidence is irrelevant. History is written by survivors, and there will be no survivors of this encounter. You have 10 minutes to evacuate your station. After that, we open fire." The transmission cut. In the command center, the Coalition members looked to Chen. "Positions," she ordered. They scattered to their assigned stations. Zenith moved to the engineering section where she'd been preparing for this moment. The station's power core hummed beneath her claws as she made final adjustments. "All teams report," Chen's voice echoed through the comm system. "Defense grid online," Zhao reported. Medical standing by, Okonkwo said. Hull integrity at maximum, the Kithrian engineers confirmed. Technology integration ready, Zenith said, and triggered the sequence she'd spent weeks programming. The station's exterior began to change. Panels slid open, revealing technology that hadn't been there when the Vryn ships first scanned the station. Hive bioweapons integrated with human targeting systems, powered by Melodian energy cores, controlled through Kithrian neural networks. A hybrid defense system born from desperate cooperation. The Vryn ships opened fire. Energy beams lanced toward the station and splashed harmlessly against shields that flickered with rainbow iridescence. Hive biotech adapted to deflect multiple frequency ranges. Return fire, Chen ordered. The station's weapons spoke. Not the crude projectiles or simple lasers of human technology, but something new. Hive spore torpedoes carrying human-engineered nanites, guided by Melodian precision targeting. They struck the lead Vryn ship and burrowed through its hull, the nanites rewriting the vessel's computer systems to recognize the station as a friendly. The battlecruiser's weapons went dark. Inside, Vryn crew members would be scrambling to regain control of their own ship. The other 5 vessels intensified their assault. The station rocked under the barrage. Hull breaches alarms screamed. But the coalition held together, each species' technology compensating for another's weakness. Zarathian damage control teams sealed breaches faster than the Vryn could create them. Human tactical coordination kept the weapons firing in perfect sequence. Hive biotech adapted to each new attack pattern, evolving the shields in real time. They're trying to flee, Zhao reported. 2 ships breaking formation. Let them go, Chen said. Disable the other 3. Zenith worked her console with 4 limbs simultaneously, directing nanite swarms with Hive precision. Another ship went dark. Then another. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, 3 Vryn battlecruisers drifted powerless around the station, their crews trapped aboard vessels they no longer controlled. The other 2 warships fled toward Ascendancy space, carrying news of their humiliation. Chen opened a channel to the disabled ships. This is Commander Chen. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are disabled. But you're alive, which is more mercy than you showed 12 species. You'll remain here until a Galactic Council tribunal can be arranged.
The Vryn commander's face reappeared, no longer arrogant but cold with calculation. The Ascendancy will not forget this. We are the dominant power in this sector.
You've just declared war on an empire. No, Zenith said, stepping into camera view beside Chen. You declared war when you created the plague. We're just the ones who survived to tell about it. And every day we live makes your empire a little weaker, your perfect genocide a little more flawed. How many other survivors are out there, do you think? How many witnesses waiting to speak? The commander's expression flickered. Just for a moment, uncertainty replacing ice. Chen cut the transmission. Around the command center, coalition members embraced in relief and exhaustion. They had won. Not through superior force, but through cooperation. Different species merging strengths into something greater than any of them alone. Get me the Galactic Council, Chen said. It's time to make this official. The transmission took hours to arrange. Finally, the Council's representative appeared on screen, a Korthan administrator, one of the galaxy's oldest neutral species. Commander Chen, we've been monitoring the situation. Your organization has committed acts of war against Vryn vessels. In self-defense, Chen countered. We have evidence that the Vryn Ascendancy created and deployed biological weapons of mass destruction against 12 species. We have survivors who can testify. We have physical samples and documentation, and we have 3 Vryn battlecruisers that attacked a neutral station without provocation. The Korthan's eye stalk swiveled, focusing on Zenith. Is that a Hive kin? Our intelligence suggested the Hive was extinct. Reports of our death were greatly exaggerated, Zenith said, as were similar reports about 11 other species. The Vryn's genocide wasn't as successful as they hoped. This is unprecedented. The Council will need to convene an emergency session. Chen leaned forward. How long will that take? Because while you're debating procedure, the Vryn might be deploying more bioweapons. Against your species next, Administrator. After all, the Korthan hierarchy has been blocking Ascendancy expansion in the Northern Quadrant. The Korthan went very still. That's a serious accusation. It's a pattern, Zenith said, pulling up the evidence displays. They eliminate opposition through deniable biological warfare. Our coalition survived by chance and cooperation. But how many others are already infected? How many council species are counting down to extinction without knowing it? The administrator's eye stalks retracted slightly, a gesture of fear. "I will expedite the emergency session. Do not engage in further hostilities. The Council will dispatch peacekeeping forces to your location within 48 hours. The transmission ended. Chen sagged in her chair. "That was either brilliant or suicidal. Probably both," Zhao muttered. Zenith found herself thinking about the future. The Council would investigate. The Vryn would deny everything. Political maneuvering would consume months, maybe years. But the Phoenix Coalition had changed something fundamental in galactic politics. They had proven that cooperation between species could create power that rivaled empires. "What happens to us now?" Chorus of Sorrows asked. "We're not going back to the old ways," Chen said. "The hive is gone. The human colonies that sent me out here are gone. Our old civilizations are ash, but we're here. We're alive. And we've built something new. A government in exile," the Zarathian rumbled. "Representatives of the dead." "More than that," Zenith said, "we're proof that species can integrate without losing identity. The hive mind was beautiful but fragile. Human individualism is powerful but chaotic. Every species here has strengths and weaknesses. Together, we're balanced." She looked around at the diverse faces watching her. "We can't bring back the dead, but we can build something worthy of their memory. A coalition dedicated to preventing another genocide, to helping species cooperate instead of compete, to making sure the Vryn's greatest crime, the erasure of entire peoples, never happens again." "That's a mission statement," Chen said. "But what's the practical application? We're still just 20-something survivors on a single station." "For now," Zenith agreed. "But we've sent the message. We've shown what's possible. Others will come. Refugees, defectors, species tired of the old power games. We become a beacon for a different way of existing in the galaxy. And if the Vryn try again?" Chorus of Sorrows asked. "If they send a fleet we can't defeat?" Zenith's mandibles clicked in determination. "Then we make sure our evidence reaches every species in the galaxy before we fall. We make our deaths count for something." "But I don't think it will come to that. We've already won the battle that matters." "Which battle is that?" Zenith looked out the viewport at the stars, thinking of her sisters in their dark pods, of billions dead across a dozen worlds. The battle to be remembered. The Vryn wanted to erase us from history. Instead, we're going to define history for the next 1,000 years. Every species that joins the coalition, every treaty we negotiate, every technology we share, it's all proof that we didn't die, that we adapted, that we became something new. Chen smiled. "The Phoenix Coalition, indeed, rising from the ashes." "More than rising," Zenith said. "Soaring." The weeks that followed transformed the station from a refuge into a symbol. The Galactic Council's investigation proceeded with bureaucratic slowness, but the evidence was undeniable. Plague samples matched across species, shipping records tied to Vryn operatives, testimony from the defector who'd helped coordinate the conspiracy before his conscience drove him to flee. The Council couldn't ignore it. They imposed sanctions on the Vryn ascendancy. Trade embargoes, diplomatic isolation, travel restrictions. It wasn't enough. It never could be enough to balance billions of dead. But it was a start. And the Phoenix Coalition grew. More survivors emerged from the darkness. A hive mining colony that had been quarantined and forgotten. A human generation ship that had left Earth before the plague hit. Melodian artists who had been performing on neutral worlds. Kethrian scientists in deep space laboratories. Each arrival brought new skills, new perspectives, new proof that extinction was harder to achieve than tyrants believed. Zenith found herself in an unexpected role: diplomat, teacher, and symbol. She was the face of the hive's survival, the living reminder that genocide had failed. Reporters from across the galaxy requested interviews. Political theorists studied the coalition as a model for multi-species cooperation. Children of other species learned about the hive through her stories. It was exhausting and humbling and nothing like the quiet life of the medical technician she'd once led. But it was necessary. Someone had to speak for the dead, and she was the one who remained. Chen adapted too, transforming from a ship's captain into a political leader. She negotiated with the council, coordinated the coalition's expansion, and dealt with the 1,000 bureaucratic tangles of running a multi-species organization. They made a strange pair, human and hive, both far from home, both redefining what it meant to survive. 6 months after the coalition's founding, they received an unexpected transmission. The Vryn Ascendancy requested a formal meeting. Zenith joined Chen in the conference room where a Vryn diplomat appeared via hologram. Not the Eyeside commander from the battle, but an older individual bearing the regalia of high political office. Commander Chen, Zenith, who speaks for the Hive, the diplomat said, the titles delivered without irony. I come bearing a proposal. We're listening, Chen said, her tone carefully neutral. The Ascendancy acknowledges errors in judgment regarding the border species. Those responsible for the plague deployment have been censured. We wish to negotiate a formal peace treaty with your coalition. Zenith's spiracles flared. Censured. You mean they were given promotions and medals in private while you pretend outrage in public? Calran's expression remained smooth. I understand your anger. What was done cannot be undone. But continuing hostilities serves no one. The Ascendancy is prepared to offer significant concessions, technology transfers, territorial adjustments, reparations to surviving populations. In exchange for what? Chen asked. Your silence. Your cooperation in containing this incident within diplomatic channels, and your agreement to disband the Phoenix Coalition. There it was. The real demand. The Vryn couldn't tolerate a multi-species organization that existed outside traditional power structures. The Coalition was a threat to their expansion, their philosophy, their vision of galactic order. No, Zenith said simply. Calran leaned forward. You should consider carefully. The Ascendancy's patience is not infinite. The Council's sanctions won't last forever. Eventually, you'll face us without bureaucratic protection. Your coalition numbers perhaps 200 individuals now. We command fleets, worlds, trillions of citizens. And we command something you'll never have, Chen said. Legitimacy. Every day we exist proves that your genocide failed. Every species that joins us is another failure.
You can threaten. You can negotiate.
But you can't erase the fact that we survived. Then you choose extinction? Kelran's mask of diplomacy cracked, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Because that's what you're guaranteeing. The Ascendancy will expand. Your coalition will be swept aside. Maybe, Zenith said, or maybe we'll inspire others to resist. Maybe more species will realize that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Maybe your empire will crumble not from military defeat, but from becoming irrelevant, a relic of an older, crueler way of thinking. The transmission cut abruptly. In the silence that followed, Chen let out a long breath. We just made a very powerful enemy. We already had a very powerful enemy, Zenith corrected. Now they know we won't be intimidated. Think we can back up that confidence? We have to. Zenith's mandibles clicked softly. Because the alternative is accepting that might makes right, that genocide is acceptable if you're strong enough to commit it. I watched my species die. I won't let that death be meaningless by validating the philosophy that killed them. Chen nodded slowly. Then we build. We prepare. We make the coalition strong enough that the Vryn can't casually sweep us aside. They threw themselves into the work. The station expanded, new modules added to accommodate the growing population. Coalition engineers integrated technologies from different species, creating hybrid systems more efficient than anything single-species research could produce. Hive biotechnology merged with human manufacturing to create medical treatments that worked across multiple biologies. Melodian energy systems powered Kethrian computers running Zerathian tactical software. The Coalition became a laboratory for what multi-species cooperation could achieve. And slowly, other species took notice. Not refugees this time, but representatives from established governments. Minor powers tired of navigating between major empires, isolationist cultures realizing that isolation was no longer viable, they came to observe, to learn, to consider whether the coalition model might work on a larger scale. A year after Zenith woke in a human bed, the Phoenix Coalition numbered 800 individuals representing 19 species. They had formal trade agreements with 12 governments. They had 3 stations and 24 ships. And they had something more valuable than any of it. They had become an idea. The idea that catastrophe could forge unity, that survivors could build something better than what they'd lost. That the dead could be honored not through revenge, but through creation. Zenith stood in the observation deck of the original station, looking out at the ships coming and going. Human vessels, Kethrian transports. A Melodian art ship broadcasting songs of remembrance. A hive shuttle carrying the mining colony survivors home from a supply run. Home. The word felt strange. This station wasn't the Hive. It would never be the Hive. But it was something. A place where Zenith belonged not because genetics dictated it, but because she chose it. Chen joined her at the viewport. The Council wants to grant us formal recognition as an independent polity. Not just a refugee organization, but an actual government. What did you tell them? That we'll consider it if they agree to make genocide a universal crime with enforceable penalties. No more diplomatic immunity for mass murder. Chen smiled slightly. They're not happy, but they're thinking about it. Progress, maybe. Maybe, Zenith agreed. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the galaxy spin around them. Zenith thought about the journey from those first terrifying moments waking alone to this, standing beside a human friend, part of something larger than herself or her species. The Hive had believed collective consciousness was the only path to unity, but here was a different kind of collective. Not linked by neurology, but by choice, by shared purpose, by mutual respect. It was messier, prone to arguments and misunderstandings, but it was also resilient in a way the Hive had never been. The plague had killed the hive mind because the network was the species' single point of failure. The coalition had no single point of failure. Each member was independent, choosing cooperation but capable of surviving alone. You couldn't kill the coalition with a bioweapon because the coalition was an idea, and ideas lived in minds across the galaxy. Do you ever wish you could go back? Chen asked quietly. To before the plague, to the hive as it was. Zenith considered the question. Did she miss the constant warmth of the hive mind? The certainty of purpose? The comfort of never being truly alone? Yes, she admitted. Every day, but I wouldn't trade what we've built here. The hive was beautiful, but it was also limited. We couldn't imagine cooperation with other species because we were so complete within ourselves. The plague destroyed that completeness. In the ruins, we found something the hive could never have achieved, true partnership across the gulf of difference. She turned to Chen. You asked me once if I was ready to face my ship, to confront the evidence of what I'd lost. The answer was no. I wasn't ready. But I did it anyway, and that's what matters. The Coalition is doing the same thing, facing an impossible situation and choosing to act anyway. Not because we're ready, because it's necessary. Necessary, Chen echoed. And maybe a little bit wonderful. Yes, Zenith said, that too. The comm system chimed. Zhao's voice carried across the channel. Commander, we have a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're formally recognizing the Phoenix Coalition as an independent polity with full diplomatic rights. The vote just passed. Chen and Zenith looked at each other. Around them, the station erupted in celebration. 800 voices in 19 languages, all expressing the same joy.
They had done it.
Had taken loss and forged purpose. Had survived and chosen to build rather than break. What now? Chen asked. Zenith's mandibles spread in what had become her version of a smile. Now we show the galaxy what rising from the ashes really means. The Phoenix Coalition's formal recognition sent ripples across galactic politics. Small species saw it as validation that you didn't need to be an empire to matter. Major powers viewed it with suspicion, a disruption to the established order. The Vryn Ascendancy said nothing publicly but increased military presence along their borders. The Coalition responded by doing what it did best, growing, adapting, and connecting. New initiatives launched. Educational exchange programs brought young people from different species to the stations, fostering understanding that would shape the next generation. Joint research projects tackled problems no single species could solve alone. Cultural festivals celebrated the diversity of surviving peoples while honoring those who were lost. And always at the center of it was the memory of what had been destroyed. The Coalition built a memorial on the main station, a chamber holding artifacts from each lost civilization, hive sculptures, human art, Melodian recordings, Catherine texts, physical reminders that billions had died not through natural disaster but through deliberate malice. Zenith visited the memorial often. She would stand before the hive section, objects salvaged from her ship, images of the world she would never see again, and remember. Not with the raw grief of those first days, but with a steady, purposeful sorrow that drove her forward. The dead deserved to be mourned. They also deserved to be avenged, not through violence, but through proving that what killed them had ultimately failed. 2 years after waking in a human bed, Zenith attended a council session as the Phoenix Coalition's official representative. The chamber was vast, seats arranged in concentric circles representing hundreds of species. Zenith took her place among them, the first hivekin to address the assembled galaxy in living memory. Honored representatives, she began, her words translated into countless languages simultaneously. I stand before you as the voice of 12 dead civilizations. The Vryn Ascendancy tried to erase us from history. Instead, they created something unprecedented. Proof that catastrophe can unite rather than divide. She activated a holographic display showing the Coalition's growth. 2 years ago, we were 23 survivors on a single station. Today, we number 3,000 across 7 stations and 42 ships. We have developed medical treatments, agricultural techniques, and defensive technologies through multi-species cooperation. We have proven that diversity is not weakness, but strength. A Vryn counselor stood, his voice cutting across the chamber. Impressive propaganda. But let's be honest about what the Phoenix Coalition really is. A collection of refugees demanding special treatment while refusing to accept the realities of galactic politics. The reality, Zenith said calmly, is that your species committed genocide and thought you could get away with it. The reality is that survivors exist, and we will not be silenced. The reality is that every day we grow stronger, every species that joins us is a vote of no confidence, in the old order where might equals right. You threaten us? The counselor's voice rose. I state facts. The Coalition exists because 12 species were murdered. We will continue to exist, and we will continue to remind the galaxy of what was done. If that threatens you, perhaps you should examine why truth feels like a threat. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species supported Zenith's position, others defended the Vryn or called for moderation, but the debate itself was a victory. The Coalition could not be ignored. They had forced the galaxy to confront uncomfortable truths. Chen met Zenith outside the chamber after the session ended. That was either brilliant or suicidal. You keep saying that. You keep doing things that fit the description. Chen's smile softened the words. But you were right. We can't let them forget. They returned to the main station where a surprise waited. Professor Volkov had assembled a team of Coalition researchers who'd made a breakthrough. The plague's genetic structure, studied across multiple species, contained a signature, a pattern in the modification process unique to one laboratory, a Vryn bioweapons facility on their homeworld. We can trace it, Volkov explained excitedly. Prove definitively which facility created the weapon. The Vryn can deny all they want, but this is hard evidence. Evidence the Council will have to acknowledge. Zhao added, even the species that have been making excuses for the Vryn can't ignore genetic proof. But Okonkwo looked troubled. There's something else. The plague variants we've been studying? They're too diverse. Whoever created them made versions targeting not just the 12 species from the conference, but dozens more. Species that haven't been infected yet. Silence fell across the research lab. Zenith felt her spiracles constrict. They're planning more attacks. Or they already deployed them and we're just waiting for symptoms to manifest, Okonkwo said. Some of these plagues have incubation periods of months or even years. The implications were staggering. The genocide might still be ongoing, ticking time bombs hidden in populations across the galaxy. Species that thought themselves safe might already be dead, they just didn't know it yet. We need to warn everyone, Chen said. Every species. Test populations. Develop treatments. The Vryn will claim we're causing panic, Zhao cautioned. They'll say we're fabricating evidence to justify our existence. Let them, Zenith said. We have genetic proof. We have the moral authority of being survivors. And we have the resources to actually help. We start testing Coalition members first, develop treatment protocols, then offer them freely to any species that wants them. It was the right approach, but it meant confronting the full scope of the Vryn's atrocity. The Coalition mobilized. Medical teams fanned out across member stations and ships, testing everyone. They found 3 individuals carrying dormant plague variants, infections that hadn't manifested yet but would have within months. Dr. Okonkwo's team worked frantically to develop treatments, adapting the knowledge gained from studying Zenith's survival. Within weeks, they had protocols that could cure early-stage infections in most species. The Coalition offered these treatments to the Council along with testing methodology. Some species accepted immediately, others hesitated, suspicious of Coalition motives. And the Vryn launched a propaganda campaign claiming the Coalition had created the plague themselves to gain sympathy and power. It was a transparent lie, but some believed it, or pretended to believe it because acknowledging the truth meant acknowledging they'd been complicit through inaction. Zenith watched the political maneuvering with a mixture of frustration and determination. Lives were being saved. That mattered more than propaganda. But the fact that some species would rather believe comfortable lies than uncomfortable truths showed how far the galaxy still had to go. 3 years after the Coalition's founding, Zenith received a private message. It came through encrypted channels, bearing credentials that marked it as authentic. A Vryn scientist, working in the same laboratory that had created the plague, wanted to defect. The message detailed the facility's location, security protocols, and, most importantly, a list of which species had been targeted with bioweapons and which might still have dormant infections. "It's a trap," Zhao said when Zenith brought the message to the Coalition leadership. "Has to be. They're trying to lure us out." "Maybe," Chen agreed. "But what if it's real? We could save species that don't even know they're infected yet. Or we could lose our best people trying," Zhao countered. Zenith studied the data. The scientist had included verification codes that checked out against known Vryn systems. The level of detail suggested genuine insider knowledge. But Zhao was right. It could still be an elaborate trap. "I'll go," Zenith said. "Alone. If it's a trap, the Coalition survives. If it's real, we get the information." "Absolutely not," Chen said. "We don't sacrifice our people." "I'm making a choice." Zenith's mandibles clicked firmly. "The hive died. I survived. Every day since has been borrowed time. If I can use that time to save others, that's what the hive would want. What I want." They argued for hours. Eventually a compromise emerged. Zenith would go, but not alone. A small team, Chen, Zhao, Okonkwo, and 2 other Coalition members, would accompany her. Small enough to move quickly, diverse enough to handle unexpected challenges. They took a fast courier ship and slipped across the Vryn border using forged credentials the Coalition had acquired through various sources. The journey to the laboratory world took 4 days of tense flight through enemy space. Zenith spent the time preparing mentally. If this was a trap, if she died here, at least she would die fighting for something that mattered. The scientists met them in a designated location, a civilian spaceport, on the laboratory world's secondary continent. She was younger than Zenith expected, with the nervous energy of someone who'd made an irreversible decision. "I'm Salon," the Vryn said. "I helped create the plague. I'm ready to help stop it." "Why the change of heart?" Chen asked. "Because I thought we were creating deterrents, weapons that would never be used, just exist as threats to keep other species in line. Then I found out they'd been deployed. Billions dead because of my work." Salon's voice cracked. "I can't undo that. But I can try to prevent more deaths." She handed over a data crystal. "Everything. Plague variants, deployment schedules, target species, and the location of remaining weapon samples." Okonkwo scanned the crystal. "This is real. My God, this is comprehensive." "We need to leave," Zhao said. "Now. Before security realizes what's happening." They made it halfway to the spaceport when alarms began to sound. Vryn security forces converged from multiple directions. The trap sprung, not in the meeting, but in the escape. The Coalition team ran through the spaceport's service corridors, Vryn security close behind. Zhao provided rear cover, his weapon barking periodically to discourage pursuit. Chen led from the front, navigating through her tablet's hastily downloaded station maps. Zenith found herself next to Salan, the Vryn scientist struggling to keep pace.
Did you know they'd be waiting?
Zenith demanded. "No. I was careful. An explosion rocked the corridor behind them. Zhao cursed and fell back. They're using heavy weapons in a civilian area. These people don't care about collateral damage." They reached the dock where their ship waited. The loading ramp was already down, engines hot. But between them and the ship stood a security barricade, armed Vin in military armor forming a wall of weapons. "Surrender the traitor and you'll be allowed to leave," the lead officer shouted. "We have no interest in starting an incident with the Phoenix Coalition." "You already started an incident when you committed genocide," Chen shouted back. "Salon is requesting asylum." "She's under Coalition protection now. She's a Vryn citizen who stole state secrets." "This is an internal matter." Zenith stepped forward. "Nothing about genocide is internal. The Council recognizes the Coalition's right to offer asylum to any individual. Salon has made her choice. Respect it or explain to the galaxy why you're willing to kill to keep your atrocities secret." The officer's weapon rose. Last chance. Zenith's combat training surged through her body. She'd been a medical technician in the hive, but all workers received basic defensive instruction. Against armed soldiers in power armor, it wouldn't be enough, but it might buy her team precious seconds. "Get to the ship," she said quietly. Then she charged. Her speed caught the Vryn by surprise. Zenith was across the distance before they could fire, claws extending, striking at weak points in the armor. One soldier went down, then another. But there were too many. An armored fist slammed into her thorax. Energy weapons burned across her carapace. Pain exploded through every nerve cluster. She fell, vision dimming, hearing the sounds of combat around her. Chen's voice shouting orders. Okonkwo screaming something about medical attention. The thunder of the ship's defensive systems engaging. And through it all, a strange peace. Zenith had survived the plague, had helped build the coalition, had made her borrowed time count for something. If this was where it ended, she could accept that. Darkness swallowed her. She woke to the sound of engines and the smell of human disinfectant. Okonkwo's face swam into focus above her, the doctor's hands working quickly to seal wounds. "Welcome back," Okonkwo said. "You scared us. Did we—" "Make it. We made it. Salon's safe. The data crystal is secure, and you're alive, though you won't be taking any more stupid heroic charges for a while." Zenith tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every movement sent pain screaming through her body. "How bad?" "Bad enough. You took hits that should have killed you. Your carapace is cracked in 3 places. Internal bleeding that I've managed to stop. Nerve damage that will take weeks to heal." Okonkwo's expression softened. "But you'll live. Again." Chen entered the medical bay. "The Vryn government is demanding Salon's return. They're threatening to break all treaties with the coalition if we don't comply." "What did you tell them?" "That genocide trumps diplomatic niceties. If they want her back, they can petition the Galactic Council for extradition. Until then, she's our guest." Chen pulled up a chair beside Zenith's medical bed. "That was incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. Someone had to. It didn't have to be you." "Yes, it did." Zenith's mandibles clicked weakly. "Because I'm the symbol, remember? The hivekin who survived. My actions matter more than just their immediate effect. They're a statement about what the coalition stands for, that we protect those who risk everything to do the right thing." Chen was quiet for a moment. "You've changed, you know, from that terrified worker who woke up in my medical bay to this, a leader, a symbol, a person who charges armed soldiers to protect a defector." "The hive had a saying," Zenith said. "Purpose shapes the individual. I found my purpose. It shaped me accordingly." She managed a weak gesture at her damaged body, though perhaps I should work on better execution. The return journey passed in a haze of pain medication and healing. Salan spent hours in debriefing sessions, revealing the full scope of the Vryn's bioweapon program. It was worse than anyone had imagined. The plague variants already deployed were just the first wave. The Vryn had planned a systematic elimination of 63 species over a 10-year period, clearing space for ascendancy expansion. Only the Coalition's unexpected survival had forced them to pause the program. "We have to go public with this," Zhao said. "Show the galaxy what they were planning." "We will," Chen agreed, "but carefully. This level of atrocity, some people won't want to believe it. We need to present the evidence in a way that can't be dismissed." They arrived at the main station to find it in controlled chaos. News of Zenith's injury and Salon's defection had leaked. Reporters from dozens of species clamored for interviews. Political representatives demanded immediate briefings. The council had called an emergency session to address the coalition's reckless actions in Vryn space. Zenith watched it all from her medical bed, feeling the weight of consequences. She'd known the rescue mission would have political fallout, but seeing it play out, the anger, the accusations, the demands for the coalition to be reined in, drove home how threatening they'd become to the established order. Good. The established order had allowed genocide. It deserved to be threatened. A week later, recovered enough to move with only moderate pain, Zenith stood before the Galactic Council once more. This time, Salon stood beside her. Honored Representative, Zenith began. "You've heard accusations that the Phoenix Coalition acted recklessly, that we violated Vryn sovereignty, that we're destabilizing galactic politics. I'm here to tell you that you're absolutely right. We did all those things. And we'll do them again if necessary." Shock rippled through the chamber. Council members who'd been prepared for apologies and reassurances faced defiance instead. "The established order allowed the Vryn to murder billions," Zenith continued. "It allowed them to plan the murder of billions more. It prioritized diplomatic stability over the fundamental right of species to exist. That order is broken, and we represent the survivors who refuse to accept that failure. She gestured to Salon. This scientist risked everything to stop more deaths. Should we have left her to face execution? Should we have prioritized Vrin's sovereignty over preventing genocide? If that's what council membership requires, then perhaps the coalition has no place in this council. You cannot simply ignore laws you find inconvenient, a counselor objected. We ignore laws that facilitate atrocities, Zenith corrected. There's a difference. And we're prepared to accept consequences for that position. Sanctions, trade restrictions, diplomatic isolation, whatever the council decides. But we won't compromise on the principle that genocide is unacceptable regardless of who commits it. Celine stepped forward. I have evidence.
Recordings, documents.
Genetic samples. Everything you need to verify that the Vren Ascendancy planned and executed the greatest mass murder in galactic history. The question isn't whether the coalition acted appropriately, it's whether this council has the courage to hold a major power accountable. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. Species divided along predictable lines. Small powers supporting the coalition, major powers calling for restraint, neutral species trying to find middle ground. In the end, the council passed a resolution condemning the Vrin's actions and authorizing sanctions. It was weaker than Zenith wanted, stronger than she'd expected. But more importantly, it established precedent. Genocide was officially, formally, unacceptably wrong, not just morally, legally, enforceably. The coalition had forced the galaxy to draw a line. Zenith returned to the station exhausted but satisfied. She found Chen on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. We did it, Chen said quietly. Changed the rules. Made genocide a crime that even empires can't commit with impunity. For now, Zenith cautioned. Laws only matter if they're enforced. The Vrin are still powerful. They'll test the boundaries, look for ways around the restrictions. Then we'll be there to stop them. That's what the coalition does, where the consequence for thinking might makes right. Chen turned to Zenith. How are you feeling? Really? Zenith considered the question. Her body still ached from the injuries. Her species was still dead. The hive would never return. But standing here, looking out at the coalition they'd built, she felt something she hadn't experienced since waking in that human bed 3 years ago. Hope. Not the naive hope that everything would be fine. The hard-earned hope that came from surviving impossible odds and building something worthwhile from the ruins. I'm tired, Zenith said honestly. Scared. Uncertain about the future. But also content. I woke up believing my life was over. Instead, I found a new one. A better one, maybe. Different, certainly. Would you go back? Chen asked. If you could somehow resurrect the hive, would you leave the coalition? Zenith didn't hesitate. No. The hive was beautiful, but it was also limited. We were so convinced our way was superior that we never imagined we might learn from others. The coalition taught me that strength comes from diversity, that different minds approaching the same problem find better solutions than any monoculture could. She looked at her human friend. You saved my life when you had no reason to. You gave me purpose when I had nothing. The coalition is my hive now, chosen not born into. And I'll fight for it until there's no fight left in me. Chen smiled. Then we're fortunate. 'Cause something tells me you have a lot of fight left. They stood together in comfortable silence, human and hive, survivors and symbols, watching the galaxy turn around them. Outside, the coalition's ships moved through the void, hive vessels flying alongside human craft, Melodian transports escorted by Kethrian warships. Different species, united purpose. The Phoenix Coalition had risen from the ashes of 12 civilizations. It would fly higher still, and Zenith, the medical technician who became a queen, would be there to see it, defiant, determined, and finally truly home.